So first things first, we only missed 1 fucking week and XL's already out. This is so underwhelming. It's fucking whack. Because if there's one thing you could give XL the credit for after the summer split when they were coming into the season finals, I kept harping on it myself, was, mate, the floor of the team was really impressive. Like, I didn't think they had like an exceptional team with great stuff. They played their style well, but the floor of the team, it's just like they never had bad games generally. They were always in the games. It was always going decently. They could always get a lane go. This season finals was fucking terrible, mate. The idea they're out already, it's like, that's just whack. Like, they got absolutely murked by Mad Lions. It was pathetic. And then this Fnatic series, like, they just don't want to win, Dom. Like, this was absolute garbage. Like, you know, one of the things that really bums me out is I don't like it on the show when we figure out, like, cynical bans. Like, you know, the famous examples, Misfits, where we're just like, if I was the coach, I would have just banned, like, basically the Theo plus Yumi plus, like, if it was, like whatever, Skarner or something. You know, like the 3 champions you would ban, or the top laner, like you're saying. It's obvious what you would ban. The sad thing is, this is another European team that's been near the top, that's a bit, again, being figured out. Like, as soon as you cynically drafted, they were just half as good.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Also, I think that their own drafts, like, the way that they would draft, they didn't cynically draft against opponents the way I thought that they should have in these series. Like, when I was watching, the thing that I thought was so confusing was that they kept on going to this, like, LeBlanc ban that Humanoid wasn't playing, and it was also getting blue side banned by Fnatic. So Fnatic didn't even show that they were, like, willing to play that pick, and it was just removed the entire series. You combine that with the fact that you had so long to prepare for the season finals, and teams just didn't pick up core meta champions. Like, across the board, it feels like the break was almost useless. Like, why can every team not play Ivern at this point? It's been good for a while. It's something that is
things have been working on that break as well as the champion, right?
Yeah, and these teams can't play it. So, like, they can't play it. They didn't use their break well at all. And then when you watch the games that they're playing, it's like the way that teams carry out their leads is just so poor across Europe right now. It doesn't feel streamlined at all. Like, if you get early kills, it should just be like early kill. Okay, we, like, won the early game. That's, like, the hardest part of the game. Now we just, like, take Dragon with our prio, then we rotate. We take Herald when we have the ability to. Like, it should be a very easy game to play out. And I just feel like there's just a lack of this, like, discipline or just knowledge on how to progress games across most of the teams. That's why I've been, like, so disappointed. And then XL, I mean, I feel like they've also just lost like, a lot of their charm. I mean, Peach was just playing, like, objectively worse than he was. And then, like, Abadage with his champion pool being figured out and teams, like, not letting him get his ear as much. I felt like it just became one of those things where XL, they didn't, like, obviously after playing so many games, teams are going to have a good read on them. What is your response to that read going to be? Like, it felt like they should have had, like, plan B, plan C just already lined up, but it felt like there was just nothing going for them, like, in, you know, this season finals. And even the games they won, I didn't even feel like they should have won those games. I felt like the only games they won are games they stole.
Go on, Peter, what do you think of XL?
They tested in summer split. Like, let's have a look at the games they played against. Okay, so Mad Lions finished the season 0-5, right? They'd already qualified for season finals. So they beat them. They then played against the day after it was announced that SK had already made season finals. Then in the best of fives, they played against Fnatic, who clearly, like, I can say this from Heretics' perspective, Heretics, we just focus on Fnatic for that week, right? Because that's what we needed to do. We needed to come third to make season finals. Same sort of thing. I would guess what Fnatic showed against us, that we were their main preparation, right? So those are the teams that they played against, and they had that one series against G2, which was pretty close, like the 3-2 series, right? But XL have gone 2-9 over their last 3 series. And, you know, it makes me question, they were never forced to out of their comfort zone when a team was prepping specifically for them, right? With the focus that we must beat this team in order to go forward. And I think you mentioned the Azir thing. I think that's right. I think that this was one of those postseasons where Odo, like, when Odo was able to get the insane engages on Gnar, when he was able to find those moments, they were able to do things, right? But when I look at Pat in these playoffs, the way that he's contesting mid-wave, he just gives the mid-wave. Like, he has numbers advantage mid, and watching Trimby and Noah just take the mid-wave off him every single time, and this leads to Limit dying in the jungle, it leads to Peach dying in the jungle. Game 5, they're so far ahead of the game. to do is step up on the mid wave, stop Noah being able to push him out and go and collapse into side lane bush, and Fnatic can't get those Baron setups, and they just backed off. And Abadagi was a little bit to blame for this, but it was mainly Patrick, and it was really, really disappointing in the Fnatic series, because I think that, you know, if you had Patrick from Best of Ones in summer, they would have beaten Fnatic in that series. You know, Oscar had his hand injury, right? So he was playing through his injury, and it kind of showed. But yeah, the Mad series, I think Mad Lions, in fairness, Mad played reasonably well when they had a lead. You know, they had Camille. They weren't forcing fights when you know they played a LeBlanc Camille game in the third game. You know, they're kind of dancing on the limit with Camille. They're not forced. You know, they're hitting towers with LeBlanc. You know, playing baiting on the map. I thought they played that game really, really well. Whereas you look at kind of Fnatic had situations where they had a Tristana pushing the side lane, and then they're just fighting 4v5, and then just doesn't even position to TP. So I think Mad Lions played reasonably well in the XL series, but I think for me XL.
Yeah, it might be like the only team that played well, because even like G2's wins, like I wasn't very impressed with G2's wins. Like, considering the level that I'm holding them to, like the standard that I have for them is that they need to shit on Europe. Like, they need to just absolutely destroy Europe, so they go international and they actually look like they're, you know, above the rest of the Western teams. And when I was watching the G2 series, it once again just felt like they shouldn't win at least that game 4. Like, the game 4 that they ended up closing it out, like that just felt like a lost game, you know, the Trundle game as well. So that's like, I guess, where my overall sentiment comes from, is like, maybe one team out of the 6 we've seen has looked good. It's not enough for me right now.
But anyway, by the way, Peter, in scrims, was XL actually like the team that they seemed like in summer? Were they a much improved squad? Were they actually like beating people?
Okay, so G2 were scrim team number 1 by far for the entire season, but XL was scrim team number 2. Even when they were 10th
right.
they were scrim team number 2. But I think the gap between second and third was much larger in summer than it was in the previous splits. And I will tell you, Patrick in scrims is the best AD carry in the league by like a mile. Like, you know, so yeah. So that's kind of what I would say about XL. Yeah, I don't really understand what happened. It just kind of felt that Fnatic, you know, about Trimby and Razork, you know, they're not afraid to look stupid, right? Like they're willing to go in, they're willing to force the plays, and you know, they were willing to take the risks, right? Whereas it felt that sometimes on XL, they were waiting for Odo to do something all the time, and that's what it looked like for me for XL. And you can't win, you can't go to Worlds, right? If you're just going to sit there and let the other team take everything in front of you. So.
My one sort of closing note on XL goes like this, because then we'll get into like all the other teams that are more interested to talk about. It goes like this. I think in a perverse, counterintuitive way, the way they failed this season finals is actually the best thing that could happen to this specific lineup. Because after they had that like second place where they thought like, well, you almost beat G2 in the upper finals, that's where you can get so baited into thinking like, we should just keep this lineup, like it's got real potential, it could develop. Like, I think you already saw the heights of what this lineup was capable of. And even then it was fairly capped. It was never in the actual official games I saw ever looking world class. It just looked like when the rest of the LEC was bad, like I said, the floor was good, and it was just they had a decent draft set up, some half decent macro, and they could win some games. Like, I think it would have been a nightmare to bring back most of this lineup. I hope they actually really just, for real, I would be insanely cynical. I would just pick like 2 players and just restart for next year. I would just redo it all over again. Pick whoever the ones you like. If you like Abadaga, pick him. If you want to keep Ordo, I assume he's on a big cut, take him. But you've got to rebuild the rest of the squad. Like the 2, like I noticed as everyone's talking there, 2 of the players that just, as the team went down, they just went down the drain was the fucking jungle and support. You're not going to, why would I even want a team with Peach and Limit as the jungle and support to go to Worlds? Like,
I think Peach is one that,
I don't want everyone to get destroyed. Like, it just looked whack. It just looked bad at the end, mate. It looked bad.
I mean, I think that Limit is more excusable. I think that the pairing of Limit with Patrick makes sense because it felt like Patrick just needs somebody who's going to like make plays for him. Like when you saw him play with Targamas and they both like didn't really know what they wanted to do in lane, it just looked so like, I don't know, just like they looked so apprehensive playing together. It was really tough to watch. Whereas, you know, sometimes you need, if you have like a player who's more stable, like for example, the upset Hilly pairing, I feel like this is kind of just a weak version, a poor man's version of the upset Hilly pairing from Fnatic, where you have like the Inter paired with like the guy that's actually going to be consistent and like make use of the kill. So I think the Limit angle, I could see him coming back. I don't see what Peach brings. And I think that Peach got bailed out so hard by the meta switch. When you saw how he looked in the first couple weeks when it was like Vi Wukong meta, he looked terrible. Like it looked like he couldn't actually play the game. And then when you go to like Maokai Sejuani, I mean, this is maybe one of the easiest jungle metas we've ever had in competitive to be the worst jungler and still win games on. Like if you're playing Maokai, Sejuani, Rel, and you don't actually have to care, Ivern, and you don't really actually have to care about, your own pathing. It's more just like showing up to the right places at the right time, making the right set plays. There's not that like that jungle intuition that comes into play where you're going to war with the enemy jungler, and if you lose like a camp here, a camp there, it could be like catastrophic. For example, before it was your Divine Sunderer timing. That was what the whole game was based on essentially for junglers, was like Vi, Wukong, who's going to get their Divine Sunderer. If you don't have yours at the third fight or the second Drake, and he has his, you pretty much just have to give everything. So I just think Peach is just not it. Like even when he was performing, I just don't have faith that he will be consistent and be meta resilient and be able to, be solid for a whole season. I feel like he'll always end up having, periods of time where he's just one of the worst junglers in the league.
Where do you come down on this one, Peter? Because I noticed normally as a coach, you always have like a different angle on junglers. So what do you think of the Peach angle? Like what did Peach bring to their team, or did he have was he a glaring flaw at times? What do you think?
Biggest issue the entire year is they were too afraid to make plays. And one thing you could say about Peach is he's never afraid. I mean, he doesn't execute the plays well. He doesn't go for smart plays. But, he does go for plays. I will say that there are a lot of very strong junglers in the ERLs right now. Like there's... actually, I could talk about junglers, right? Because it's not like I don't care about junglers, right? Like, but like, like Linkers, people like... maybe Isma. There's a lot of like very, very, very talented junglers, and there's also the best free agent on the market this offseason, which are going to be Inspired, right?
Sure.
And Inspired goes, if Inspired was on Excel, or maybe let's say Bo was on Excel because Inspired's gone to Vitality or something, then then that could be a big benefit. Like they need decisiveness on their team, though, right? And this
there's
something...
even technically self-made out there in the wild somewhere. And here's the thing about self-made: it's guaranteed he will deliver, because otherwise the pizza's free if he doesn't get there within the first 30 minutes. Whatever, you get the joke.
I knew it was gonna.
Okay. All good. It's all good. Listen, I'll always give mad props to self-made. He's actually still got his hair, and he's Polish and like in his mid-20s. So fair play. That's already a W. So you got to take W's where you can. Anyway, going back, right?
Come on, Yanko still has some hair left. Why you gotta do him like that?
He's like the Daywalker, mate. He's got all their strengths and none their weaknesses. Exactly. He's also a cool guy who's not argumentative. So, I don't even know if I need some sort of like a Maury Povich. Is he actually Polish? Let me just check. Like, let's get the DNA. Let's figure it out. Is he secret Hungarian or something? What's going on here?
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, bringing it all back. You are right. There's a lot of junglers out there. So basically, Peter, like if you were XL, obviously you don't necessarily want to give rivals advice, but as an observer, do you think they should gamble maybe on a different jungle?
If I were coaching XL, I would look at some of the other options. I'm not saying I'd sign them, I'd look at them.
Yeah, sure. I do think, by the way, not least, it's not just because of like the EG thing, but like people have just written off Inspired in a really weird way. Like, this guy's a phenomenal player. Like, he might not have at times, I don't know, stylistically fit with someone in Rogue or something, but to me, the Inspired one's just like that whole Vethio one. It's like, if someone doesn't give this guy a chance, you're just blind, mate. Like, there's clearly something there where if you're on the right team and you pick him up, he will be one of the best. Just flat out, come on.
You don't even have to be on the right team, right? Like Koi said all those things about him, about how he was like a dreadful fit and everything. And what's their worst position with Inspired? Like third in the league?
Yes.
And that's the worst case scenario, right? If we go on what Rogan Koi was telling us, which, this guy's obviously insane. He's gonna come back to Europe and he's gonna get the bag next season.
Yes.
So I'm happy for him.
Yes. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.